Yeah, primarily it's the services, both in terms of businesses and student services. Tony mentioned how bars usually don't lose money, but you compare it to like SFU's bar actually loses money. I mean, it says a lot about how the AMS actually does a very good job of operating its businesses. In addition to that, it is the student services, like the fact that we have programs like Safe Walk, Mini School, and like our resource groups. And I think that with the sort of few effort in the past, I mean, we should look at sort of very recent cuts we've made to those programs.
Alright, so because there's 6 of you and time's short, we're going to do a little lightning round of just hands up or not for a show of support. So first of all, we recently had a referendum where there was the non-controversial question of renewing a UPass, but there was also a couple slightly more controversial questions on there. So first of all, could you put your hand up if you voted, or if you would prefer not to reveal that, are in favor of the fee restructuring and increase passing? Alright. Could you put your hand up if you are in favor of the substantive bylaw changes which did not pass? Okay. Could you put your hand up if you are in favor of the AMS advocating for lower tuition? Alright, so since there's an even 3-3 split there and everyone cares about the price of tuition, why don't we go around it's not a table, the row, and each person can have 45 seconds to explain their position.
Thank you. So I guess my main philosophy when it comes to education is that the underlying goal is not what the tuition cost is, but can people who deserve to go to school. And I think that reducing that to an issue of tuition is very simplistic, and it's essentially not pragmatic, and it's not even the most progressive outcome that you can look at. With the same amount of political capital that you would use to spend lobbying futilely for tuition, we can make tangible steps towards reforming student loans, reforming the student financial aid bureaucracy that's a gigantic mess in this province. We can start doing tangible things that students will actually see. With that said, I do respect that 87% of students who voted made their voice heard. And so as the chair of University and External Relations Committee, I do respect that input, and I will seek to find a way to incorporate it into the consensus with the other views that students have.
In regards of tuition decreases, I agree with what Kyle, the points that he was making. And on top of that, I feel that just looking at the global economy and how, in the greater scale of things, how the world works, I feel like it's simply a waste of time, realistically, to be lobbying for a decrease in the tuition. If anything, we should be lobbying to prevent an insane increase in tuition, but regardless, there are a lot of other issues on which we could focus that could bring a lot more benefits to the students as a union.
Well, it kind of sucks being the third guy in that question, because I would have to agree with what the other two said. Essentially, tuition is just one of many aspects related to accessibility to education. So if tuition goes up minimally, but say student aid such as bursaries, scholarships, and even better deals in student loans were to go up at a higher rate, then we would have education that was still nonetheless more accessible. So I think we have to recognize the reality that universities do incur costs, and it's easy for us to say they should charge us less, but at the same time they do have to be able to run all the things that we access. So I think ensuring that students are empowered to access those things is probably the most effective way of letting them all go to university who want to.
Well, I don't think that lowering tuition is a waste of time. I think that I think you should all just get rid of this good enough attitude that just because we have a reasonably low tuition rate, implying that we don't need to even advocate further deductions of this tuition, because I still see people taking part-time jobs, full-time jobs even, and taking out student loans, because tuition still costs upwards of thousands of dollars. That's no small feat. You can't just, say good enough and, go home for the day. the AMS referendum, this question that we've been posed, whether we supported it, 87% of students wanted you to lower tuition. So why aren't you doing it? Obviously, people demand that of you, and you are accountable to the students.
So I would have to argue with what both the first two people who talked said, that maybe we should fight against it if it has a ridiculous increase, but it has increased ridiculously. Tuition has doubled in the past 10 years, which is not accessible to all students, and the fact that most students end up with tens, 20s, thousands of dollars of debt after school, that is not accessible, and school should be accessible to everyone who can. And I agree that we should be fighting for scholarships and for better loan policies as well, but I don't think that you can do that without fighting for tuition as well.
I think this is ultimately a question of democracy. The AMS is a democratic organization, and 87% of students support the idea of the AMS lobbying for lower tuition. And in terms of student aid reform, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can lobby for a reform of the student aid system and also lobby for lower tuition. And I think with regards to that, I mean, it ultimately does sort of come down to the provincial government, which is I believe that the AMS should reconsider affiliating itself with the Canadian Federation of Students, as opposed to CASA, because CASA only lobbies at the federal level, while the CFS lobbies both at the provincial and federal levels.
Well, first we have one of the candidates who wasn't here, Roy Brazel, has a statement that he would want written in response to that question, and so Brian is going to read it.
It's actually not in response specifically to that question, he just sent it in. So this is just a short statement, just so that Rory has a chance to speak in the debate. He said, "I apologize for not being able to attend the debate this evening, so I'm still in transit back to Vancouver from Victoria, where today myself and several other Ubyssey students participated in a large-scale protest against student debt at the provincial legislature. I relish in the chance to debate and hope that my absence here will not deter any of you from sending me any questions you may have about my platform or policy questions." Actually, this is sort of related to that question, isn't it? I hope rather that my absence demonstrates that I'm serious about advocating on behalf of art students, and further demonstrates that I'm willing to make personal sacrifices to do so. All the best to my opponents in this debate, and remember to check out my Facebook page. Okay.
Anyone to say whatever they want for 60 seconds, and you'll start first.
All right, well, thank you again for being here, and also for all of you who are watching online. I think looking forward for this coming year, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of people coming in with some great new ideas and trying to have new ways to keep the AMS fresh and accessible for students. I think that's really healthy to see, and it's really healthy for the society that we have 12 people competing very vigorously for the 6 spots. But with all of that said, I think that the AMS has a very high turnover rate. Every year, a student comes and a student goes, and we start to sort of see a loss of the sort of institutional knowledge that's needed to really provide effective continuity. I think that I can help to provide some of that continuity because I do have the experience on council. I do have experience as a committee chair and as chief representative, which shows the confidence of my peers in this faculty. I think that I have a strong record of tangible, pragmatic achievements. I don't believe in grandiose, successive statements, but I do believe in tangible things that benefit students every day.
10 seconds.
And I really would appreciate your support. Please check out my Facebook group for more information, Re-elect Kyle Warwick for AMS Representative, and please send me any questions you have, and I'd be happy to get back to you. Thank you again.
So yeah, to conclude, my main point is, my main goal is to bring more, larger flow of information from the students, our students, to the AMS, and from the AMS to the students, as I feel that this was one of the things that was lacking, and that has been lacking in the past. Check out my Facebook event page, and yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think one of the first mandates of the AMS is really a simple one. It's just to be there to positively enhance the university experience. And in that context, that's what I promise to do, is to work within the AMS to ensure that we are fulfilling that mandate, and to project an image of competence, of a dignified student society that doesn't embarrass students. I was at SFU when the UN issue happened, and I thought that's not how a student society works. We have to be there to be responsive to our students and to ensure that they're represented, and that's what I would do as a counselor of the AMS. I would fight every day for students' interests, including making making education more accessible and working on other projects such as the Ubyssey line and housing. But that is what I'd like to do in the AMS, to work hard and to deliver results on students' priorities. Thank you.
So every year, candidates promise lower tuition, but through council's ineptitude, lower tuition has become nothing but a trite tagline for campaign posters. And with your support, hopefully, I can make it so that people don't have to work an extra 20 hours a week. Fixing this incompetent institution is my priority. Unions have yielded great influence in the past. In a system which favors the administration, the AMS is the guardian of student interests. And we can't afford another year of an AMS which won't fight for your beliefs, for your interests, for your values. I mean, if you vote for me, I will. I'll fight to change the AMS, fight for your interests, and fight for your voice, so that you're heard in this broken institution.
I don't have anything quite as grandiose as that, but if I'm elected, I will definitely be fighting for lower tuition and for the interests that students have, be that tuition, as I just mentioned, and just generally better representation, be that for international students or students with disabilities, or just students who feel that the AMS is this big thing up there that doesn't really listen to what students want. And I think that I can bring a new voice that will help to connect between the AMS and the students that it's meant to represent, but doesn't always seem to listen to.
Basically, my campaign is based on two important points. First off, it's the affordability of education. As we already mentioned, tuition is a major issue as a student aid. But I think something more practical than that is for the AMS to lobby the university to build more student housing on campus. Because Vancouver is one of the most expensive cities to live in North America. As one way we can sort of negate that is by building more student housing for students on campus. Second major theme is just making the AMS more relevant to students, both in terms of reversing the cuts we've made to student services, and making sure that our events are well marketed and relevant to students.